3 years ago, the Argo RAFT was reviewed for this channel, with the ultimate verdict being that the Freelancer Max was probably the better choice back then. As of patch 4.2, however, things have changed, with the cargo capacity of the RAFT doubled, significantly improving the utility of the ship and ultimately changing the verdict on this hauler. I'm Forrester, and this video will review the currently flyable Argo RAFT, which is described on the Star Citizen website as a medium freight ship. If you've seen other ship reviews on this channel, then you'll be right at home with this video, which follows the usual format. It's split into 5 sections, starting with a ship tour, assessing combat performance, reviewing handling and visibility, looking at the operating costs and profitability, before finally summarising. As always, I've included timestamps in the video description in case you want to skip ahead, and if you're one of the many people watching who isn't yet subscribed to the channel, you might consider it, not least so you can keep up to date when new ship reviews like this drop. And this review of the Argo RAFT is based on performance in Star Citizen Alpha 4.2. And we'll start the tour of the RAFT by approaching from the rear beneath a fully loaded cargo deck. These are 32 SU crates, and there are 6 of them. Beneath the front starboard side of the ship is a button which deploys the elevator down. This elevator can lead to one of 2 decks aboard. There's the main deck or the top deck. In this case, we're going to head all the way up to the top deck. It's probably one of the lesser used spaces on the RAFT unless you use the tractor beam. The elevator brings you up into this engineering type section. There are lots of buttons on the wall which house components or spaces for components behind various doors. On the starboard side, marked Avionics, is also an area for the flight computers. At the forward section, or I should say the rearward section as we're moving back through the ship, there's a door which leads to a corridor filled with components. Once again, these are hidden behind doors. The different components are marked by labels such as shield generator, power plant, etc. On the port side at the rear of this top deck is a ladder which leads down to the main deck. And finally, right at the back of the top deck, looking out over the external cargo stores, is this support station. It has got a screen for fiddling with various ship controls, but most usefully it accesses the onboard tractor beam via a remote turret. Heading down through the ladder, we go down to the main deck of the RAFT. This ladder takes you down pretty much to the back of the main deck. This is a side room which has 4 different stores for armour sets, and these are hidden behind little doors. There's also a weapons rack. At the front of this room is the onboard bathroom. Thankfully, by way of a bug, it seems to be that the glass is currently blacked out when the door is closed. Thank goodness for that. This room leads into the main habitation section. There are 2 bunks for the crew use, a kitchen area, and a seating area with a window out to the back. When there's cargo loaded, it's difficult to see much out of the window, but in the event that there's no cargo, it offers great views. There's also a locker to access the ship inventory. At the front of this habitation section is the sort of gathering area of the main deck. There's access to the airlock, which leads to the exterior of the ship. And this is somewhat properly airlocked with ceiling doors and a nice padded area for zero-G entry. The airlock itself is a nice round hobbit hole style door. There's also the lift, which is the main lift that we went up to the top deck on, and right at the front is the bridge area. There are some decorative elements, as well as 2 seats for the pilot and the co-pilot. So hopefully it goes without saying that the Argo RAFT is not designed to be a combat ship. That said, it does carry weapons, so it might be helpful to understand how they perform. The main armament is a remote turret on the top of the ship, armed with 2 size 3 weapons, defaulting to M5A laser cannons. The turret can be controlled from the co-pilot seat for that full 360 coverage, or alternatively, in the absence of a co-pilot, can be directly controlled by the pilot. They can be slaved forward, or even set to follow the pilot's gaze for off-center shooting, which can be particularly helpful in the RAFT, as it's slow to get on target. Further, there are 2 unfilled size 1 hardpoints, which could be equipped with 2 size 1 weapons. These are more forward-facing, however, not benefiting from the angles of the turret, and if using these slots, be sure to set extra power to weapons. In terms of firepower, that's it. It means that the RAFT can sort of engage smaller targets, but against dedicated fighters, particularly players, the blind spot beneath the ship is easily exploited. Defensively, the RAFT carries 3 size 2 shield generators, which makes for a fairly reasonable level of protection, perhaps enough to buy a little time to try and effect an escape or for help to arrive. By way of visibility, the RAFT is surprisingly good. The cockpit canopy is right at the front of the ship, protruding a little, meaning that views to the front, sides and below are fair. There are some struts which slightly obstruct, not to mention the cockpit equipment, but the ship is slow enough that it's mostly fine. The SCM speed limiter defaults to 140 meters per second, which is quite slow. At those speeds, an unloaded RAFT handles okay, but as soon as it carries cargo, it feels noticeably heavier. It's slow to turn and drifts heavily at top speeds. The one saving grace is the generous afterburner, giving plenty of time to fire corrective bursts before hitting the red zone. But outside of that, the RAFT looks a bit like a flying brick and handles about the same. In nav modes, the RAFT will cruise up to a top speed of 990 meters per second, which is more competitive with other haulers. It'll still be easily caught by a range of fighters or interceptors, but for getting from A to B to pick up or drop off crates, it's a sufficiently high speed. As with other ships, slowing down from the top speed is best effected by switching quickly to SCM mode as a bit of a space break. To support manoeuvres, the RAFT does come equipped with VTOL thrusters, which can be toggled to rotate 90 degrees downwards. They give extra thrust for liftoff or arresting downward momentum, which can be useful situationally. The quantum range of the ship is reasonable, largely able to cross Stanton on a single tank. However, it's worth adding that the cooldown on the stock drive is a little heavy, which can sometimes leave the ship exposed after a long jump. The RAFT is usually given a medium hangar, into which it fits comfortably, so for loading and unloading cargo, it's often best to fly in sideways to have the rear cargo facing one of the cargo elevators. In terms of running costs, the Argo RAFT isn't too expensive to run. The main cost is usually quantum fuel, for which you might expect to refuel more or less every journey at a price of around 2,000 to 3,000 Alpha UEC. The RAFT is a cargo hauler, and that's where it does best. With 192 SU of grid storage, the RAFT can carry a range of crates up to the largest 32 SU boxes, of which it can carry 6. Moreover, by carefully choosing missions, 192 SU is often sufficient to complete 2 medium haul contracts simultaneously, albeit whilst being careful to deliver the right boxes to the right place. That's a good place for the raft to occupy and means it can make fair sums of money through hauling. The raft grid is 8 units wide, 2 units high and 12 units long. It comes equipped with a tractor beam at the back, although for smaller crates it's often easier to load the ship from underneath, as the location of the tractor beam sometimes makes it difficult to get crates exactly where you want them. Cargo trading is also somewhat possible with the raft, albeit the external nature of the cargo can make doing so a little more risky than some other haulers. In terms of upgrades, the obvious one is to equip 2 size 1 weapons to the front mounts, perhaps M3A laser cannons or similar. Then perhaps upgrading the quantum drive, a Chimera might be a good candidate. Otherwise, for cargo hauling, the stock configuration may do just fine. The raft with the extra cargo stores is a good ship. The cargo at the back is pretty easy to load up, the grid isn't as awkward as some others, and it's simple to visually separate different types of crate, which makes for a good hauler. The ship can be effectively run by a solo player, but also has enough to do for a second person to make teamwork aboard viable. The raft showboats the pretty iconic Argo colour scheme, and the habitation space inside actually looks good too. For those riskier places, it's possible to exit via the airlock, which is a little more secure than the main elevator. But there are downsides too. That airlock feels like it wants to be a docking port, but is in too awkward a location to make that viable. The lovely window in the habitation section is blocked as soon as any cargo is loaded aboard, meaning it just offers a view of crates most of the time. And it feels like the actual cargo carried seems very slim compared to the size of the ship with the updated grid. Space above and below the cargo just kind of feels wasted, as if it should be able to take even more crates aboard. Additionally, to use the tractor beam, it's necessary to head all the way up to the top deck. It'd be great if the raft was more like the Zeus CL, where the co-pilot seat had access to use the tractor beam as well as fly the ship. Then, there's the fact that the cargo is exposed. It's difficult to know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Ultimately, having the cargo outside the ship makes it more vulnerable to being taken. But it also means that there's less reason to board the ship, so arguably that might mean that the crew are safer for it. It's hard to know. But the cargo grid is all useful space, unlike the grids on some other ships, like the Zeus CL for example. All of that brings us to price. The raft can be picked up for 3.5 million Alpha UEC, which is actually a very favourable price for the cargo capacity when compared to the Taurus or Starlancer Max for example. Out of game, that's usually around $125, though that may well increase based on the new performance of the ship. Both the in-game and pledge prices are compelling options for what this ship can do. It's a good, solid moneymaker for those interested in hauling or trading, and it does that role fairly well. Honestly, the main competition for the raft is probably waiting in the wings as the Hull B, another externally loaded hauler which may also end up reasonably priced. But until such a time, the raft with the new updated cargo capacity is a really great option for a medium hauler. But I shall say no more and hand it over to you to please share your thoughts on the raft in the video comments. If you enjoyed this video, you might press the like button to help me understand what videos to make more of in future, and if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, you might like to do that too, so that YouTube knows to show you more videos like this in future. But otherwise, and as always, thank you for watching.